Oh my God! What the heck? What? This must have been in one of my books.
Right now.
It's a reversal sketch I
Oh. What? How many years ago?
14 years ago.
Lennon, stop it.
Like a blackberry. Like a blackberry.
I hate all of you. I went to this thing at MTV at Diamond Head, and I always wore jeans, and one day I wore shorts, everyone pointed and laughed at me.
That was the opposite with me. I wore shorts every day, and the one time I wore jeans.
I what? I'm not. This is work. I'm working, I promise. Hashtag selfie camera shot.
Everybody ready? No. So everybody should make some contribution. So I know lots of you have multiple contributions, but no. I don't want you to. I'm just old, so I have a hard time sitting on the ground. I don't want you to sit around like my children. Face those other people. Face those other people. I will sit on the outskirts. That was very weird. I felt like it was story time.
What time is it, Nick?
Story Okay, here we go. Let's share. So you may have multiple things to share. Share one or two or three, but very.
Hey, Robert.
And then
Whoa. Whoa.
Ryan.
Philip Glass does never like the term minimalism. He instead prefers to speak of himself as a composer of music with repetitive structures.
Fun fact, personal life.
Fun.
No, everything. Yeah.
His family was Jewish immigrants, and they were from
He once punched an audience member who leapt on stage uninvited to accompany him on piano while continuing to play on piano with the other hand.
Awesome! Yeah, one of the things I like about it was that we kind of think of composers as just like, like kind of mellow people who are always on the piano and not. Phil Glass at one time worked as a plumber, as a cab driver. Chuck Lewis was a better musician than a plumber. So plumbing sucks. Plumbing doesn't seem very good. Yeah. Yes, absolutely, please.
Okay. It is a historical irony that Philip Glass will be forever labeled as a master of minimalism. After all, the Baltimore-born, New York-based composer and pianist has spent the better part of his career fleshing out a body work that is defined by extended and reductive musical techniques and procedures that, in the big picture, are anything but minimal. Yet his style seems indefinable by any other easy terms in pop culture's musical lexicon. So the shoe fits.
How do you pronounce his name? Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah, just go for it and try to like.
Okay, Ramble. Yeah, so like, purpose is like.
Speak.
Okay, so there's this guy like Ramakrishna, and he had to like Philip Glass was kind of influenced in his early spiritual years by him. I think he wrote this piece about him. It was like a composition.
Ramakrishna?
Yeah.
Who's that?
This guy, he was a mystic of 19th century India.
Okay.
Philip Glass considers himself a classicist, and he is trained in counterpoint, which is the relationship between voices that are independent harmonically, or interdependent harmonically, but are independent in rhythm and contour.
Just go.
He's a vegetarian.
Yeah.
He was born in the
For his work in the Truman Show, he won a Golden Globe.
He wrote music for Sesame Street. Yeah,
Glass.
that's the one.
Glass.
To add to Lennon's David Ives wrote a play about it.
Glass is a prolific composer. He has written works for a musical group which he founded called the Glass Ensemble.
A quotation from Philip Glass as an answer to a question was, "Smoke and drink coffee." That might seem very mild right now, but when you're 15 and it's 1952, it makes you very rebellious.
Actually, what Tyler said, the play was called Philip Glass Buys a Loaf of Bread, and it consists of Philip entering a bakery, having a conversation with the owner, and two female customers. However, the dialogue is split up and repeated constantly among 4 characters.
So it's like his music, but in the play. I have a copy of a really good one. This one's
They made 5 documentaries about it.
Philip Glass shares his birthday with his favorite composer, Franz Schubert.
He graduated from the University of Chicago at age 19.
He excelled at the University of Chicago, where he studied mathematics and philosophy.
His sister Ira Glass hosts This American Life.
His cousin.
Difference?
His cousin Ira is a man.
Sorry.
Get on!
He uses his song Metamorphosis 2 on his album Solo Piano that is used by Pearl Jam to open their concerts.
Glass's work sometimes borders on a sort of musical pornography, eliminating the build-up and instead presents climax after climax, which can occasionally fall short of reality. Mundanity has no place in the proceedings. It's all drama, and grand drama at that. But the composer himself counterintuitively warned future generations to avoid such stylistic pigeonholes. The habit of working isn't so bad, but the habit of habit is a terrible habit.
Quotation.
Who's that from?
That was Glass.
That was Glass himself?
Quotation. At one point, we had to find a name for the piece and what the piece would be about. We ended up with Einstein, and that was the third idea. Glass says, "I think he suggested Hitler, and I didn't like that one, so I said, what about Gandhi?" And that was kind of the opposite. I think he didn't respond to what the theoretical idea of Gandhi would be. And then he said, "What about Einstein?" Well, Einstein had been a great hero of mine since I had been a child, so I immediately said, "That's great, that's the idea."
Glass's and Wilson's essentially pointless opera was conceived as a metaphorical look at Einstein, scientist, humanist, amateur musician, and the man whose theories led to the splitting of the atom, evoking nuclear holocaust in the climatic scene, as critic Tim Page pointed out. As with another look at harmony, Einstein added a new functional harmony that is set apart from the early conceptual works. Composer Tom Johnson came to the same conclusion, comparing the solo violin music to Johann Sebastian Bach.
Johann.
And the organ figures to those Alberti basses Mozart loved so much. Mozart loved so much. Mozart.
After
The piece was praised by the Washington Post as one of the seminal artworks of the century. Seminal means like inspiring things after.
You got multiple opportunities, so
He has 3 main quotes.
After graduating from the University of Chicago at 19, he wanted to become a composer, so he moved to New York City and attended Juilliard. And he also studied in Paris after that.
not able to do. Yes, give us the 3 quotes.
I travel the world, and I'm happy to say that America is still the great melting pot. Maybe a chunky stew rather than the melting pot at this point. You know what I mean. Another one is traditions are imploding and exploding everywhere. Everything is coming together, for better or worse. And we can no longer pretend we're all living in different worlds because we're on different continents. And the last one is, what came to me as a revelation was the use of rhythm in developing an overall structure in music.
Probably from his work with Ravi Shankar. Yes?
I was reading an interview with him, and I found this quote from him that I really liked. So the interviewer asked him, was there a point early on when you decided that you wanted to tackle something like an opera? Was that a conscious decision? And then he responded, I think you'd be surprised at how little I think about these things. I kind of do what's in front of me, and I try to keep what's in front of me interesting. And the other thing I do, and this is actually very conscious, is that I shift between mediums very frequently. Instead of taking a break from writing, I just write in a different medium or in a different way or for a different purpose, so I don't actually stop writing. I just go to something else. Like going from a big symphony to a piano piece is great and very refreshing, I find. and then going from a big concerto and then having to go out and play?
He was on the University of Chicago wrestling team and was a young devotee of motorcycles. He rode from New York to Aspen, Colorado on a white BMW.
He's cool.
Yeah.
His ex-wife Candy. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
From his NPR interview, when they asked him about repetition, he said, "I consider the first 20 performances just learning the piece. Think about it this way. If you think about a pianist who plays a Schubert sonata throughout his whole lifetime, if you listen to Rubinstein or Horowitz, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this, Rubinstein, playing their repertoire later in their life, you understand the richness with which they play that music and how differently they must have played it when they were younger. I think it's only after about 20 performances that we begin to understand the dynamic structure of the pieces." And then I have another one from the interview about why he wanted to have other composers do different versions of his songs. And it was what do you think about timelessness in your work and how things in your work feel dated or not dated? He says, "It all sounds dated because I can't write that music again. I can't write Einstein on the Beach again. I played it from it in a concert the other day, and it's like I never wrote it. My brain's been rewired. I don't think I've ever said this publicly, but I think that the music we write, it accurately reflects the way our brains work, and our brains are constantly evolving. Our brains are very plastic. They continue to grow."
Einstein was a kid. He grew up in a 2-story row house, and his father used to play the piano at night, so he would sneak down the stairs and listen to him. And he kind of thought that his father knew he was there, so they had a strange bond, I'm guessing. I'm not.
Go Glass.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh,
no, it's okay. Just wait to make sure.
Yeah.
The interview between Ira and Philip, Ira asked, "Do you ever try to compose so it doesn't sound like Philip Glass?" And Philip Glass said, "I do it all the time and I fail all the time."
Much of his early work is based on the extended reiteration of brief, elegant melodic fragments that wove in and out of an oral tapestry. Or, to put it another way, it immersed the listener in a sort of sonic weather that twists, turns, surrounds, develops.
When you hear,
Go.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I want it.
I'll go.
When you hear, okay, this is a quote. When you hear for the first time the music you have composed, there is that astonishing moment when the idea that you carried in your heart and your mind comes back to you in the hands of a musician. People always ask, is it what you thought it would be? And that's a very interesting question because once you hear it in the air, so to speak, it's almost impossible to remember what it was you imagined. The reality of the sound eclipses your experience. The solitary dreamer is wondering, will the horn sound good here? Will the flute sound good there? But then, when you actually hear it, you're certainly in a different place. The experience of that is my God.
Now, I have a comment about that. If you think about the stuff that you have written for this show, and the stuff that Jason has written, and you think about writing that stuff and you hear it up here on stage, try to remember what that experience was like hearing your words. It's different, yeah. It's different than what you imagine. And sometimes it's mind-boggling how different and how good it is.